Thank you for tuning in to All Things Division III Soccer with SimpleCoach and Jackie. That there is Jackie, ever vigilant, watching my six, and I am SimpleCoach. So really psyched for today's talk with Craig Appleby, the head men's soccer coach at Johns Hopkins University. Cover a whole slew of topics. We get into some detail about some games, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I had in doing it. And this is the sort of thing that I originally signed up for and what I wanted my channel to do, which is be a forum and a place where coaches could talk about their game and have other people tune in and sort of understand some of the coaches that are really shaping the game in the U.S. at the Division III level. So with that, Craig Appleby of Johns Hopkins University. Thanks. So, Coach Appleby, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm especially appreciative of the fact that you're here. So, you may not realize this, but for those who are watching who are just catching on to SimpleCoach, I started this out by watching games, Division III games, and writing my notes on d3soccer.com. The boards, what have you, not thinking anything other than I'm doing it anyhow, so I'm just going to post. And I wasn't really thinking about getting people to respond or whatever. I was just more interested for my own exercise on a tangent of counting passes and does passing matter in the game and all that stuff. So this all started with a email I received from a certain Johns Hopkins head coach who, responded to one of my emails about saying, hey, I'm doing this channel. And you were the first coach who emailed me questioning something I had written, which I was so psyched for, because I've mentioned in previous videos, the whole premise of this channel is for me to question assumptions about how I'm watching a game, what I'm doing, because I feel like as you get older, you sort of get wedded to a certain way of thinking, and I'm trying to break myself of that because I'm turning 25 and I'm fully expecting to be called up to the national team. So what a better way to do it. So the fact that you reached out to me to question something I wrote was, again, as probably not such a big deal for you, was a big deal for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, people are reading my stuff. But then probably more importantly, we had a good exchange, I thought, of talking about the game. And I don't get many opportunities like that just because of where I'm at and what have you. So with that, I just want to long-winded thank you for joining me today. Really do appreciate. And thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Definitely.
Okay.
And love the stuff you write on the D3 soccer boards. I do tune into it for better or worse, but also I like taking in information. As much information as you can take in, it's helpful. So it's I don't think it's smart to not take in information.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's great to hear. And like I said, I think a lot of people get really, they think it's funny. I think a lot of coaches think they get the game, and then that's it. They don't think of it as this expansive thing to do and think about differently. And anyhow, so hey, maybe you could just start by talking about your journey through soccer and probably more importantly, I mean, you're the head coach of one of the premier Division III college programs. So how did you get here?
It seems like a wild ride. I guess to start, I have to start with playing, because that's what kind of got me into soccer. It started Lived in Michigan. My mom was looking for, I guess I was troublesome. So my mom was looking for a camp that was overnight. She could get rid of me at the youngest age. And so it was the soccer camp was the only one she could find. I went to a soccer camp, fell in love with it. The Michigan scene was good. It was in Detroit. And there was this one kid that was really good on this team that I was playing on that kind of like rec league after camp. He wore number 18, and I guess I liked him so much that I wore 18 after that going forward. But then we moved to South Carolina, and then I was hooked. But growing up in South Carolina, at the time, that was when the national team was filtered in through region teams and state teams, and ODP was the big kind of recruiting tagline you needed to have. And being from South Carolina, most people from South Carolina didn't get a lot of love. So I went to Irmo High School, coached by Phil Savitz, a legend. He's now at Pine Bluff, and is doing excellent things. He's an excellent coach. Won some state championships there. As Player of the Year for the state of South Carolina my senior year. But sent out, all the recruiting stuff. It turned out either to go to South Carolina as kind of we don't have any money for you, but you have a spot, might play junior, senior year, or go to Wofford. At that time, it was D2.
D2,
yeah. And it's pretty much guaranteed playing time right off the bat. So I went to Wofford. And it was, I don't regret anything that happened in my life because it's landed me where I am now. And all the good things is great, but when you go through trials and struggles, it helps develop you for where you end up. So I went there. We struggled. Also, liberal arts schools. I'm in my marriage. My wife's the grammar. I'm the math. So
I am neither, so that's okay.
at Wofford, like even the math classes had these blue book exams. You had to write all this stuff out. I was like, can I just have numbers? So soccer was a struggle at the time, and school was a struggle. So I transferred to UNC Charlotte, and we turned out to be a pretty good team. My junior year, I think we were ranked as high as 4th in the nation. My senior year, we were ranked as high as 2nd in the nation. In between those 2 years, we went to Germany, and one of the players, his dad was like vice president for Lufthansa. So he's like, like I can hook you up with these teams and stuff like that. So we went over there. We played 5 third division teams. A good number of the guys stayed and played. So Aiden Heaney, who's the head coach at UNC Wilmington now, a couple of other guys stayed and played with Wiesbaden. But that put in my mind that I could play in Germany. So when my eligibility was up, I went over there, played there, came back. I haven't finished my degree, so came back, finished up my degree, and then started playing the whole USL A-League. The name changed every year. Yeah.
It was whatever the team was. I'm there. I'm going. Doesn't matter. I'm going. Yeah.
Right. So I played in Colombia with the Spirit, and they changed to something else. And and this is about the time I started coaching club. So this is where the coaching part started kicking in. My stepfather, Jim Forrest, kind of helped start up what is now South Carolina United out of Columbia. And he was coaching a team, and he said, "Hey, do you want to help coach this team?" I said, "Okay." So I would drive from Charlotte down to Columbia to train them twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
Really enjoyed it, and yeah, that kind of kicked off the bug of wanting to coach. At some point, I went to go get my B license, and in the B license was Tony Corbett, who was the assistant coach at Washington and Lee, and he said he was leaving. Would I be interested? And I was like, sure. So I put in for Washington and Lee assistant job, and got that job, and was there for 2 seasons with Rolf Perinian. We're still great friends. Love Rolf. But I was then, and I played with the Richmond Kickers during that time frame. Charleston Battery before that, Richmond Kickers after that. So I'm still kind of coaching and playing at the same time. Then I was getting married, and there was nothing really in Lexington, Virginia for Kel, my wife. So kind of put out the word that I was looking for a job. Some guys I played with were in Houston at a club, and they're one of the guys they knew left to go to the Texas Heat. Said he needed kind of a person to work with. So I got that job at Texas Heat, coaching club. It was brutal. I had to coach 9 teams one year and 7 teams another year. And it was a lot of driving around Houston, trying to keep up with those games.
You probably destroyed a car a year, right? Like
well, So I had a Honda CRX, and the AC unit gave out in Houston, Texas, and it was brutal. I had one of these fans hanging from my rearview mirror. Also, like, I mean, this is a terrible story, but funny. Like, I wasn't taught much about, you have to change the oil.
Yeah.
So this was a car I got for graduation for high school, and had never changed the oil, and it lasted till, so I graduated 89, and that car lasted till 99. So 9 years without an oil change. Nice. So that's a pretty good advertisement.
Makes me reconsider my 3,000-mile oil changes.
Yeah. So we dropped the car off there to a guy's, like, if you want it, you can have it. Mechanic said, yeah, okay, I'll take it. But at the time, like, I was actually on the verge. I was also a heavy golf nut at the time. So I'm going on one of these tangents.
That's fine.
This is one of my tangent plays. And so I would be waking up early in the morning to go work at golf courses so I could get free golf. And the last place I was at, and so I'd go out, work this from like 6:30 in the morning to 12, doing bag drop or ranger or whatever, and then play from 12 to 4, and then drive over and do training from 4:30 to 9:30.
That's awesome.
And so I was kind of in a fork in the road there, where the one assistant pro took the head job at Atascocita Country Club, and he reached out and said, "Hey, I want you to come over there with me. Are you interested in going?" I was like, "Okay, what to do? What?" And he goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, "I mean, what about an assistant pro?" And he goes, "Okay, let's do it. We have to get you through the players test and stuff like that." And so I was deliberating it, and then I went to work Clemson camps, and the Wofford assistant job was open. Now they were D1, so went and met with John Blair, who was my coach when I played there as well. Thankfully, I had a very supportive wife. I drove back from the camp. We went out to eat as soon as I got back, and she goes, "Okay, let's go." I mean, it was paying pennies compared to what we were getting paid, but it's like, let's do it. So went to Wofford, Was there for 2 years, and through it, I picked up, a few things. I think it's right around when the convention had Pereira from Brazil come in and work on kind of defensive structure. So that was big for me at the time. And applied for the Wofford job, didn't get it. Gave it to Matt. Man, I should know the last name. I wanted to say Matt Spear, but that's not right. Matt was coach of Davidson.
Davidson, I know Matt, actually.
Yeah.
I worked with him at internetsoccer.com, but many years
Matt's
ago.
a great guy.
Great guy.
I didn't get the job. Reached out to Rolf at WNL. He said, I heard Emory and Henry's open. So I called Emory and Henry. Fred Self, the AD at the time, said, we were hoping you'd call. So, okay, that's great.
Wow.
And I had the job within 2 weeks. Was there for 6 years. That's a tough job.
Yeah.
But again, I needed to go through that job to kind of learn how to be a coach with lacking resources.
Yeah.
The opportunity came up here at Hopkins. I put my application in. I got an interview and did well in the interview, and they said, "Okay, we want you to come coach Hopkins." I was like, "Wow, that's awesome."
Okay.
So
that's two ends of the spectrum, right? Emory
and Henry, the springboard to get you. I had big shoes to follow with Matt Smith, who did an excellent job at Hopkins and came in, did well at the beginning. First 3 years, we made the Sweet 16, and then we had a dip, and then but the dip was necessary for me to come out a better coach. So it's something that I look back and go like, yeah, that wasn't great. But then I also reflect and go like, but if I didn't go through that, then I wouldn't be where I am now, which I feel a lot more confident about who I am as a coach. I feel like I have a stronger identity of who I am as a coach. So that's kind of the long-winded story of it.
You don't know what the peaks are until you know the valleys, right? Like that's the ebb and flow to me of the game too, right? It's just in life, right? So if you're not better if everything is just easy, or you got to go through those time periods, right? And it just proves your mettle, right? So
correct.
Okay, so I just want to shift over onto your team, because when I started, I was a former D3 player, and years had gone by before I started looking again at what Division III was, and before I did this in the fall, where I started looking at teams, and I went on the boards initially to figure out like who are the teams that are worthwhile, and not worthwhile, that's terrible, but that they're considered elites, or they're considered the best in the country. They're, that when people say, name the college, they're like, oh, that's a good soccer team. And invariably, Johns Hopkins would come up in that conversation. And so I guess I'm a big culture guy, right? With the team culture. And so maybe it would be helpful if you could just sort of talk about your team culture, how you've built it, how important the buy-in of the team is. That would, if you could just sort of talk about that for a little.
Yeah. Well, I'd say the dip that we went through, like the 2012 through 15, involved a few things. One was my 2010 class was very talented, extremely talented. But there were a lot of goobers in that class. And they challenged. It kind of divided the team. So the old guard was legit, understood. You put in hard work, and that's your most probable lane to land in success. This class came in and they wanted to replace. Academics is certainly number one at Hopkins, but we want soccer to be number two.
Yeah.
And they were trying to replace that number two with partying instead of playing. And so there was constant discussions about the drinking rule.
Yeah.
Fitness was an issue. And at the time, I think I came across to them as a heavy fitness guy. I do believe in fitness. I played for Frank Kohlenstein, who he was sponsored by Nike running 100-mile marathons. So we certainly knew fitness. But it just divided the team, and I had to, it took a while for me to structure an avenue to get out of it. And we had to, kind of sit down. I think one thing that sparked it was that alums came back, and the guys on the team looked at those alums and said, I want what those guys have.
Yeah.
And that was the key to open up the door to say, okay, now I see a trigger to say, like, okay, how do you get what they have? What they have is a relationship.
Yeah.
And you're trying to separate soccer from relationships. You're thinking you can just go out and play technically and be success, instead of going like we're a platoon, we're a squad here. So how I react with you and how you interact with me is very important. Initially, they tried to discount that, but I spent time talking about like love and trust, relationships. And the funny story is I just got done talking about love and trust. It wasn't me talking. I was asking them questions, what's a good relationship? What does it involve? What are key components? And then one of the players comes in after that and says, like, okay, my buddy maybe hooked up with my girlfriend. I was like, okay, is he still your best friend? He's like, yeah. And I go, like, maybe you need to, like, we just talked about this, right? You need to have some conversations now, because they've stepped across the line in terms of the relationship with you, and you're just kind of smoothing it over like it's okay. So it took a restructuring about how people think about their relationships, and then we can tie it into, okay, now we have relationships on the team. And how do you keep those strong? You have many actions that either weaken those relationships or strengthen them. Picking up the balls after you shoot. Like, do you shoot and expect somebody else to get it for you? Then you're setting a dynamic that you're above that person. And that doesn't fly here. Where if I'm going to say as a coach, I'm equal to you, I'm not above you. I just have heavier responsibilities I have to adhere to, right? To lead this team. But you have equal say in this team as I do. If I'm going to say that, then I expect that between the players. And so we lined that up, and then some captains came in and helped line that vision up, and we got it going where, okay, now I can coach. I don't have to do the babysitting part of it.
It is amazing how important good captains can be, and equally destructive bad captains can be, right? Like, so.
Definitely. I had a conversation with our volleyball coach a few years ago about what's easier. I asked him what is easier to do over the 4 years. Is it easier to train technique and see a great jump in terms of technical ability, or train a leader? And he said technique. I go, okay, if that's the case, then like when we go out and say, okay, I need a target forward or a center back or a keeper, shouldn't we also be going, well, I need a leader? Because if you're acknowledging you can't make huge transformations in terms of leadership, then you better recruit a leader. Instead
Very
of just
true.
instead of thinking, okay, I'll try to mold a leader. Like that is done too, but
Yeah.
you need somebody who comes in with some of those skills already.
Yeah. I always say it's like, right, leadership it's a little bit, everyone's just sort of starts out as like a ball of clay, right? In terms of leadership, if they have that ability. Some folks are just not into that, right? They're just, their personalities, what have you. But the right person, the right coach, they're able to mold that into a way that makes it really productive, not only for themselves, but obviously for the team. I, this is a subject that I'd love to talk about, because I think, again, maybe this is idealistic, but I think college coaches are first and foremost educators of young men, right? And women. And it's so important, sort of how you develop these players, these student athletes, through the 4 years. But yeah, like I said, this is hey, maybe we'll do another one where we just talk about leadership, because I'm sure you're much more in tune to it on the soccer field than I am. Let me just ask, what are the non-negotiables on your team, right? And fully understanding that Johns Hopkins, again, not only on the soccer side, but just academically, right? Like, I'm sure that's a big deal, the academic part, being at you go into this at Johns Hopkins knowing that. But what are some non-negotiables that you tell your team at preseason, or even in the recruiting process, where you come out and say, like you mentioned leadership, but is there anything that, look, if you can't buy into these 3-4 things, then don't even bother, right? You're not a player for this team.
Right. Well, hopefully we're catching that in the recruiting phase and not right when they showed up. But yeah, I mean, I think non-negotiable is you can't try to change the culture after what we've gone through. If you're budding, you're allowed to have a conversation about it. Like it's a democracy. So we have open forums where we gather together and bring up subjects, and everybody has their ability to stand up and say, hey, this is what I think, and then we'll discuss it. But if you're actively trying to push against what the team has agreed to do, it's non-negotiable. You have to go. You're trying to change the culture by yourself, and or you're applying for my job as the coach, and you know that's not going to happen. And I'm not going to go back to what we were. I'm very diligent to pay attention to make sure that we maintain the culture that we have now. Our GPA is for the team is a 3.62. I'm not dealing with student life sending me emails or calls about, hey, the men's soccer players are doing this. So it's very important to keep that culture intact, because it also plays into what's happening on the field as well. I'm a very big believer, like, you use the same computer or filter to make your decisions off the field that you make on the field. So I'm trying to heavily coach both things, and be a mentor in both directions. So if you're cheating, cutting corners or whatever off the field, you're going to do it on the field as well. And if you're doing that, if you're doing it and we don't know it, it's still causing rifts, small rifts that add up to big rifts. And so that's the non-negotiable. Either you want to do what we're doing, or this isn't going to work. And so, I mean, I feel like that encompasses everything you could think about, like fitness. Are you going to show up fit? When I coach you, are you coachable, or because what I'm going to ask you to do is much different than the instincts you came in here with. Our style of play is different, and so you can't just go down the river using your instincts. I talk about, most people, this is the off the field thing, float. It's my belief that most people float down the river of life.
Yeah.
And get to the end of it and go like, what? I think I made a mistake. I think I didn't get this right.
Yeah.
I missed some things.
Yeah.
And I think the same can be said in a small degree on the field as well. You can look back and go, like, maybe I should have been more assertive, aggressive, and not so shy and just trying to fit in. Maybe I should have been more bold. But in the same regard, you got the flip side of that. Well, there's guys that can dribble that just do it way too much because they can dribble. So giving framework to make decisions, good decisions, is what I try to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's my tangent. So I sometimes lose the origin of the question.
Yeah. No, just in terms of, like I asked about the non-negotiables, but I am struck by, especially, and we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end, that kids in high school don't go into college thinking so much about how the college team is going to impact them. And I think they think they're going into the college team to, I'm going to tear it up and I'm going to be this guy. And sometimes that's not what's needed, or expected. Right. And so, okay, so let's shift over to the season. So I've been asking this of everybody I've talked to, just because of 2020 was such a garbage year, for lack of a better term. In soccer, did you play spring games? Did you get an opportunity to play spring games?
Yeah, we played Franklin and Marshall and Muhlenberg.
Yeah.
So we were thankful to get something in.
Right. But so going into 2021, what were your goals? I mean, you have this big void for basically 2 years. Like, what was your thinking about, hey, we're going into 2021, guys, this is what you should expect, or this is what we want to do?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say that for me, it feels like 2020 felt like it could have been our year. We had two center mid All-Americans on the team, Alejandro McLean and RJ Moore. And unfortunately, they got great jobs, so they didn't come back. But we lost in the second round in 19 to Conn College, and it set up well that had we played in 20, it looked like it could have been a great year, because all those guys were super motivated to come back after that loss and go like, okay, we're ready.
Yeah.
And then that just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so now the shift of focus of, okay, great, we had spring, and thanks a ton to our administrative staff, particularly Jim Baker, our AD, to work hard for all of our sports to get out and get something in for the year.
Yeah.
But what I have experienced as a coach trying to teach the system that we play is that it takes 2 years. It takes 2 years for people to get really competent with it and comfortable with the system. And we had two classes of players coming in that were very talented enough to earn good playing time or even starting time, but don't quite know the ins and outs of the system. So because of that, I thought, I set goals that, if I believe if you're in a race, you're in the race to win it. So the goals were to win the conference championship and to win the national championship.
Yeah.
Now, the realism that I settled on was, like, I felt like we were just going to be too young.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought where we finished was about what might happen. I was hoping for more.
Right.
Also fearful that it could have turned out even worse. Right.
Yeah.
I was surprised that we did so well in the regular season for the Centennial. We played, really well except for a few games. But I thought we weren't going to be consistent enough to really get through the gambit of 6 games in the tournament against really good teams. I think to win a national championship, you have to be good, but you also have to overcome certain types of obstacles that are going to come up. Ours was certainly a snowball, but that we didn't overcome. But you've just got to be lucky in some part. You've got to be good enough to create a standard deviation that gives you gives you the percentage that it falls in your favor, and stuff like that. And so I'm proud of the team. I'm disappointed we didn't go further, especially for particular seniors like Liam Creedon, and Xander, and Nate Charndoff, and those guys, but and Linzer. But in reality, it's probably what was to be expected is what happened.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll bring up the snowball in a little bit, because that was I shake my head at that one, but and I played in Ohio, so I know I've played in plenty of snowballs, and if you're not used to it and you go up against a bunch of Ohio boys, I mean, it's normal for them. But anyhow, all right, so let me rip the Band-Aid off. What I mentioned earlier about my notes, when the notes that I posted on d3soccer.com, and I'm just going to read this, and this is from your game against Mary Washington, which I think you won. Actually, you won handedly, if I remember, 3-0. Yeah.
No, okay. So Mary Washington, they went down a man, and we scored a goal against.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
The corner kick rebound, and then held on. I don't think it's that one, because of the game. I think it might have been St. Mary's instead of Mary.
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe I'm sorry. I'm not going to disagree. So this is what I wrote, and this was the beginning of our email exchange that I ironically enjoyed so much. But so this is what I wrote. We'll say Johns Hopkins looks coached to pass to cones. Not sure they are looking at some of the runs that are being made and the options available to the player with the ball. They seem to have their mind made up ahead of time. As an example, outside back is looking for a pass down the wing or to drop it back, irrespective, because irregardless is not a word and there's a double negative, of the fact that there is a center mid 20 yards away. And of everything I wrote, you replied back. And so I'm going to hand it off to you to feel free to butcher my idea, what I was thinking, or why this bothered you so much.
It bothered me, not because what you said. It bothered me because that's the impression we gave you. And so it's not that you're wrong about what you said. It's about, like, we need to be better about presenting what we do, so it doesn't look like we're robots. I'll go back to, like, I believe you use the same engine or filter off field as on field, and I try to connect those together congruently. In saying that, like, there are programs that have been very successful, and definitely successful in college soccer, that teach robots, and these are the only options I'm giving you to choose. You do those options, or you sit on the bench. I'd like to think as a coach that I am the opposite of that. I'm not trying to teach robots. I'm trying to teach decisions. But it's a lot more complicated to teach that style than you only have two options, this or that. And so when we're training, it is trying to layer in like computer code where, okay, let's start with the first decision. And in the first decision, what you're going to see is A and B. What are you going to choose? And then after you master the decision of A and B, then you can move on to A, B, and C, then A, B, and D. And because of that, I think what the look is that they're still stuck in A-B phase. So it looks very predictable, and it looks just two options instead of multifaceted. And so that's why I said, my comment was it hurt that that's what was said, because I preach freedom. I preach being bold and taking whatever the best decision available is, and giving guidelines to make that decision. There are some options that at this point I have to say you absolutely can't choose that option. Because we're so wide open. If you choose that option and fail,
we're in trouble.
We're in big trouble. Right. But passing the like, I hate training sessions that are like, okay, I don't like shadow training. I don't like any unopposed training, because I want decisions to be made. Like I want to focus on, you have pressure, you have an opponent, you have to make a decision. And so I guess that's why I comment back is like, oh, that hurts, because I want Hopkins soccer to be thought of as dynamic. I want it to be thought of as I want to play like them. And so and I also don't like, if you make a comment like that and a recruit reads it, I don't want a recruit to go, I don't want to practice like that. Like all our practices are kind of rondo based or similar to rondo based, that there's always some sort of decision you need to make
in a hurry.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, I do, like I said, the whole process and the couple emails that we went back and forth that led to, and then ultimately led to this, I will say I should be mindful of how I express my thoughts about a game, because again, the way I was approaching it was I was just watching and, oh, that's a funny, quirky way to describe it, and I for that I apologize, but I think too.
Well, you're also covering tons of games, so like like the ability to cover all those games and get so much information on board. Like I couldn't do what you do. Like you have a good mind to kind of pinpoint things and isolate on something and pick it out. So yeah, I think it's great. I wouldn't want you to try to stop or alter that. I think, I guess, just defending our system, there's what you saw, which I won't say was inaccurate in what you saw. It's the interpretation of, I guess, and I'm going to reference Mike Carroll book, which is a Poker Tells book. And he says, sometimes you just have to factor in the prerogative of the person on the ball. They're in control. So sometimes they go like, the right play is this, but you know what? I'm going to do this play, or I'm going to do that. And what is actually what the coach is trying to get across, and what is actually the prerogative of the person doing it, might sometimes create a gap. And maybe not. So, if our players are doing some things repeatedly, and it looks like a team can key in on those repeated actions and set up a defense against us, that's definitely problematic. But also, I want us to be an example for others to follow. So in doing that, I want to present a product that people go, hey, I want to be a part of that. And if we look like we're robots, I don't think that's going to be accomplished.
No. So, well, I like I said, I appreciate that, like more than you realize. It's interesting what you commented on, because one of my biggest issues, and I've written about this. Like I'm that guy that if I want to hide somewhere, oh my gosh, somebody just has to type in the internet where I am, what I'm doing, and they're going to see, what I'm interested in at the time, just because I'm not that good at keeping the stuff I do private. But the comment you made about robots, I've written in the past, like my biggest issue, and it's way too much at all levels, and I think you see it reflected in Division III, but definitely through those, the couple years leading up to going into college, is how robotic the game seems to be to me. In rare instances do I see it differently, but it just, the predictability, and I'm not, it's not a bad, I don't want to say it's a bad thing. It's just, I just wonder, is there something endemic to how it's being coached that, this is my tangent, right?
Right.
That leads to that. And it's one of those things that I feel like I've been shouting at the mountaintop for the longest time, and everybody's like, yeah, there goes Paul again on one of his rants. So,
I mean, in terms of college coaching, I understand. You see teams that employ this system of only two options, and basically the theme that I've pulled from people talking about this is it's mitigating risk.
Yeah,
it's all about defensive structure and basically not trusting your players.
Yeah.
To say, like, you're going to mess up, so we don't want you to mess up close to goal. Mm-hmm. So we're going to send the ball closer to their goal, because you know what? They mess up as well.
Yeah.
We'll teach defense. We'll get strong, fast, big guys, and then force a mistake close to their goal and hopefully capitalize on it. And our style is the opposite.
Yeah.
It's risk is all around.
Yeah.
But I'm also trying to, like I said, be congruent with when they come into the office and talk about their life, trying to encourage them to be bold in their life. And so I can't teach mitigating risk on the field and then
be bold
and tell them, okay, if you want to ask that person out, mitigate your risk, or no, be bold and go for it. Like live life. You only don't just float down the river, get out of the boat on the shore and go up and ask that person if they want to go out. Same thing. Like, if we want to dominate the game, we have to have the ball. All agreed? Yes, all agreed. Then, like, that means that some teams are going to come at you. And force us against our back line. And I'm requiring you to be calm. And not be scared. Be bold. And hey, if you make a mistake, so be it. And you're going to have to make some mistakes to get the experiences to know how to do it right. So we're aiming for when we all got it going right, that hopefully it ends up meaning that we are successful.
I will say, what I always thought watching Johns Hopkins was how good in possession you were when you didn't feel like you had to make that big decision, which is, do I send the ball? Do I put it through? Do I try to get to goal? Like, when you guys wanted to, hey, let's just hold the ball, let's settle things down, let's own it, and let's let the other team chase. You were probably one of, if not the best team at doing that. And then obviously things change when you get onto the attack, and it just sort of the variability of that. But I thought in possession, when there there was almost like a sense of calmness, like, hey, let's just knock the ball, right? Like you have those moments where it's like, we don't want to go forward, don't want to go back. Let's just hold it and sort of get our senses. I thought by far you were one of the best teams that I had watched. And
thank you.
Okay, so like I had mentioned,
hopefully next season you can say the same thing about our attacking third play.
Okay, yeah. No, I didn't think. Don't get me wrong. I didn't think there was a.
That's my criticism of our attacking third play. It's not your criticism.
Okay, there was. I think I mentioned the first game I watched. So whichever St. Mary's or like you kept going down the right hand side to number 7. I can't remember who was on that right side. Who was very very good, very very talented. And it was almost like that was the designed play, is get him the ball, let him go, get him the ball, let him go. And that's, I think that, and it was good. It was just, I just thought, man, this expansive field, is there another way you could keep them honest by, hey, ping the ball the other side or knock it through and see if one of you guys can run through on the ball. But anyhow.
Yeah, my response to that is, and I don't know exactly the type of play you're talking about,
right,
or who exactly you're talking about, but my response to that would be like, the team is, I never said, hey, this guy's weak, so play over into this area. I might say this is open, so keep playing it until they decide to defend it,
close it. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I get that.
So, I mean, those choices in that game, those are the choices that the guys on the field made.
Yeah.
And if it's open, I'm not going to say don't make that choice. And so if a team doesn't respond, and for instance, if a team changes formation, we often change formation.
Yeah.
And with changes of formation opens up different gaps or openings that are exploited to move the ball to the next level.
Yeah.
And so that's usually what's happening. Like, I think you did make a comment, like in the St. Mary's game, it was something similar to, like, I would shift the outside back up to cover that, or the winger I would hold in that space.
Yeah.
And then I think my response would be, well, then our guy would make a different decision because of that. Like we would try to exploit a different area if you tried to defend the area we were exploiting at the time.
I get that. Like, and it's funny because I was like, oh my gosh, that way. And then the next game, maybe it was McDaniels. Did you played McDaniels? Right?
McDaniels. So you made a similar comment like that, where in my interpretation, I could be wrong because I haven't gone back and read it, but the left back was tucking in next to the center back.
That was,
And our winger, because of that, our winger was wide open.
Yeah.
And so they kept allowing easy access into our right wing.
Yeah.
And then the left back would go out and defend them. So, okay, if you're going to allow us to start our attack from our right winger every time, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
The problem was, at the time, our winger just wasn't like exploiting him in that 1v1. If he was able to exploit him, then it would have been like, perfect game plan. You guys saw that was the open guy.
Yeah.
We get it to him, and then when he runs at him 1v1, it gets him behind him and creates these opportunities.
Yeah.
He was kind of coming into that dribble, and he didn't have a clean move to get past him.
Yeah.
And so he kind of fumbled in that 1v1 situation, and it didn't create what it should have created, in my opinion.
I think that is probably a very valid observation, because I think if it was more than just getting that ball out right or onto to the right wing, left wing, what have you, it led more often to something dangerous and productive. And even if it was you went out to the right wing every time, but 1 out of 3 you were creating some huge danger. I think I probably would have been like that observation. I would have been like, okay, that makes sense to me, because you're going to goal and they're giving it to you, so you might as well take it. And I think it was not as clear cut that was happening. So anyhow, We could do this for.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
gonna put
just
the cones out on the floor if that's
right.
okay.
I mean, just to match this up with one of your other questions, like
Yeah.
why we did struggled coming in. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's similar in to respond to like the Christopher Newport game.
Yeah.
They had a great game plan against us.
Mhm.
It was a 4-4-2 block.
Mhm.
They gave us our half for the most. They pressured some, but they stayed very tight and disciplined. Exactly what you would see a team that would try to play against Man City. That's like,
Yeah.
we don't want Kevin De Bruyne to have it. We don't want.
We want minimal
that,
space behind us and in front of us. You could have it for 3/4 of the field, but you're not getting through, right?
Right. So, you know, what was unfortunate was that we were rotating 4 wingers at that time,
Mhm.
and we lost 3 of them.
Yeah.
So we only had Axel as our main starting winger
Mhm.
for the Newport game, for the Ursinus game after that.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure when Nate Charndoff, Tyler White, and Will came back,
Mhm.
but I know they were missing in those 2 games.
Yeah.
And Ursinus, I don't know this for sure, but I think Ursinus got the scout report from Newport, did exactly the same thing. We were very unfortunate to give up an early goal.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to break down the wall.
Yeah.
And not having wingers available, or our top wingers available,
Yeah.
hindered it all, because that's the way you get around the corner of the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah.
Or, or we needed guys that were just exceptional with their long ball play, which,
Mhm.
we don't tend to have a ton of those guys,
Mhm.
because a lot of what we do is smaller play.
Yeah.
So if you work on one thing, you're usually sacrificing working on something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, we struggled in those 2 games particularly, because one, Tim was not, our center back was out,
Yeah.
the one that had experience.
Yeah.
So we were dealing with center backs that had different areas that they needed to, step up. Some were shy and not wanted to fit in and not make a mistake, and some were, a little bit more bold, but maybe too bold, and some were making mistakes. And just leaning on instincts instead of filtering totally what I was coaching.
Yeah.
So we came up short.
Yeah.
And sorry if I kind of side jump one of your questions.
No, that's fine. Like I said, I like this stuff to go in the ways in which you're thinking, and I write my notes down, because like I said, if I don't, I'll just keep talking about going down the rabbit hole, and I'm trying to not do that, because
Right.
I have a very undisciplined mind in a lot of ways, and that's the only way I could do it, is if I write this stuff down and have to follow it. So, all right. So let's talk about a couple of your players. Tim, and I'm going to butcher names, so I apologize in advance. Tim Trina and Liam Creedon, I think, are outstanding ball players. Like, how important were they to your success this
They
year?
were essential.
Yeah.
Given that we lost, like I said, in 2019, Creed and Alejandro and RJ were 3 center mids. And it was possible. I lost my whole central midfield. So Creed and coming back was essential for the midfield to operate somewhat close to what we were used to. And equally, if not more important, is Tim, because the evidence was there that when we didn't have Tim, we struggled. And Tim was, he's been here long enough. He understands the system well enough, and the subtleties of the system that you have to embrace to get what we're looking for. And on the other side of the center back spectrum, we had new guys who were still feeling it out, and didn't have enough experience to go like, okay, I experienced this against F&M, and I experienced this against Haverford, or many of the schools that we play against that know what we do.
Yeah.
That it's almost like those schools knew more than our center backs as to like what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so, without Tim, we would have been in big trouble.
Yeah. He was outstanding the games I watched. I think I wrote he was the general on the field as far as I was concerned. Like, it's the one guy, you looked and I'm like, that's the guy, right? Like, and so.
Yeah. They're usually the center backs are our Tom Brady's of the, they're making the key decisions. If that's weak, then it kind of hurts the structure all the way through.
Yeah. He was the general, and he was that midfielder guy, like the one, give him the ball, he'll know where to put it, it was just, again, credit to him, right? Like, just the soccer IQ on him was, I just thought, really stood out to me in the games that I watched. So you had a freshman, Ian, I'm going to butcher the name, Ian Waymont. I didn't butcher. Okay. Freshman, second team all region, Centennial Conference Rookie of the Year, I think, or yeah. I mean, a banner year for a freshman. When you obviously you recruit him for a reason. He shows up. Did you expect that? Did you think he was that good, or that he had this capability of being the Rookie of the Year for Conference Rookie of the Year, or was that a pleasant surprise to you?
I'd say yes and no. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to see him live. There was a camp that I was at. I was required to be this place and that place, and was able to say, hey, can I see this person? Because they said, yeah, sure. So I had a limited window to see him. He was playing winger instead of attacking mid, and playing with new guys that he wasn't comfortable with. So he showed okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know. And he comes from an area where we've gotten a lot of recruits. So we've got, there's a group of those Connecticut players that the families are all connected. The Quintanas, the Waymons, Pablo Martinez, they all kind of came from the same area and were family friends and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure. And then I asked Alejandro, who was our All-American center mid, like, what do you think about him? He goes, we play together all the time. I think he's as good as me. So as soon as he says that,
yeah.
Then I go like okay, yeah, all right, then I'm sold. Yeah. I have, as you mentioned it, I have a NESCAC friend, coach, that said, did I miss the boat on him? And I said, yep, you definitely. So I rubbed that in, but I could have equally been at blame for missing a boat on him. So, yes, he was a pleasant surprise, and he also wasn't a pleasant surprise. He also was as good as I thought. It was just I was real late to the table, and luckily I wasn't too late to miss him.
Yeah. That's funny. That's like winner chicken dinner, right? Like, okay,
right.
I'll take it, right? So, and then look, you have what I think. I actually picked him as did my own. These are the best players in Division III soccer, and I consider him one of the top 3 keepers in the country. In Xander, you're going to tell me his last name? Lefevre. Okay. All right. Absolutely outstanding. And I mean, how it's great to have a guy like that. Like, how important was he to your overall defensive posture? Because I did notice that, especially with his feet, you sort of leaned on, or the backs leaned on him Probably a lot more than most teams do, right? I think a lot, they put the cone in the. This is terrible, but as being a former goalkeeper, they put the cone in the goal, and then that's it. But
Mhm.
you guys didn't, and so I mean, how important is he to that overall structure? And not only in that, and being just a fantastic goalkeeper in his own right.
Yeah, it's essential. He's an extra player you get to use, so it's an angle that if a team presses you, it's an angle that's required,
Mm-hmm.
and an extra player that's required. So if a team knows that your keeper is limited in terms of technical ability with his feet, every team should set up to press to push the ball to the keeper.
Yeah.
So Xander having the ability to get out of a press or move the ball to the right person is essential to the system. And he developed that while he was here. Like his freshman year, he wasn't as sharp as as he is now. But I really have to give credit. Like Xander deserves all the credit that you're giving him. He's a super hard worker. He holds himself to a high standard, so he deserves a lot. But he would be one to tell you that William Vanzella, our goalkeeper coach, has been tremendous in his development, and equally so, the keeper before Xander, Brian C., who's now playing professional in Malaysia, started it all. So Brian had phenomenal feet that he could hit left foot and right foot out to the midfield line. So it was very hard to pin him in. Now, Brian made some crazy choices with the ball.
They were goalkeepers.
Yeah. Well, he thought, just like you can see Ederson when he's on the ball going I can make this pass. Yeah. Brian would also do that, not going like, but what if I miss it? And so sometimes Brian, like one time he passed right to a forward at the top of the box when our center backs are out wide.
Yeah.
And it surprised the forward. So much the forward took like 4 touches, and then Brian stuffed him. He didn't even get the shot off. So Xander had the privilege to work under Brian, and then Xander stepped excellently into that role. So Xander coming back for his grad year was huge for us as well.
Yeah. I like I said, he did some things. For goalkeepers, I'm not a flash guy. I don't like guys who, waste energy on dives that they could have easily caught. I'm not, I like the simpler, the better. To me, is the way a goalkeeper should play, because it minimizes potential error. All this, again, my own theories about goalkeeping, which run counter to a lot of keepers these days that prefer, hey, look how great I am at this save when I could have caught it. But nonetheless, I watched him and I thought, here's a keeper who gets that. And I always thought he was so solid because he made even those difficult things where other guys would try some crazy dive, he wouldn't. And he was really intelligent positionally about how do I prevent the shot or from even becoming dangerous, whereas most keepers are, I think nowadays, are just generally reactive, right? But I'm a super fan, and if he ever wants to talk about goalkeeping and your goalkeeper coach, I'd love to do a video on that. Like I said, it's just an ever expanding thing of mine, which is bizarre. But
I can't say enough about William Vanzella. He's not that I've had bad keeper coaches in the past, but I think he brings. He has an experience and a level where he brings the subtleties. Like there's small things that I've been around the game a lot, and I can step into goal. I've stepped into goal before as an assistant, and my knowledge as a forward has led that I know how to set forwards up to make them shoot the way I want and block it. But even with that, there are things that he sees that I can't see as just a head coach, like a body angle, or just how to make your couple steps to get the explosion. Tons of things that are just subtly raise the level of the keeper and gives them the confidence to go like, oh, that worked. Like I've seen that so many times. He's like taking these guys that I recruit and go like, he's a pretty good keeper. And like, he needs some work. And then he adds these things and you can see them going from, I don't know, to then they try it and it works and they go, then they're all balled in and like, oh, show me some more stuff. You know?
Well, if you mention it to William, that I might actually just reach out to him to do a similar interview. I'm trying to catch the right guys. I'm not just sort of going out there, and so anyhow. But yeah, just let him know. I'd love to talk to him. I just want to touch really quick on that game against John Carroll in the NCAA's. I played against John Carroll when they used to play on like their college green, and it was a mud pit before they built Don Shula Stadium, and typical OAC school, big football programs, all that stuff. But
where'd you play?
The University of Mount Union, small
football school.
Football school, yes. We've crushed you a few times.
yes. It's always like, I mean, it's like Messiah deserves the reputation they have,
right?
With so many national championships. So it's that Mount Union's that Messiah as to like, okay, we're excited to play you, but you're really good, right? And it creates that, like, if you can ever beat them, then you break through that psychological barrier, right? Same thing with winning
standard, right? This is the bar. How and I always said, I've said it. I mean, they won the first national championship in '93, I think, and it's been this way. Even today, they haven't won it in a few years and struggled a little bit. But I've said, like, that's a kind of team, like a Messiah, now Connecticut, Tufts, you guys. Like, if you're an aspiring team and you want to get to a level, you have to go through Alliance Ohio first to prove yourself to do that, right? So anyhow, okay. So the snowball, John Carroll. First, let me ask, how big of a deal was the snow? And I don't want to make it like if that was you think the main reason for why you guys why you lost, but how big of a deal was the snow to you guys?
Well, first of all, I'll say, like, John Carroll's a very good team.
Yeah.
Without the snow,
they
might have still beat us. So, it's hard to say what would have happened without the snow. But one, I like I said before, I think there's always something that you have to overcome, whether it be a ref that's
terrible,
just seems to be not calling the right way. Weather conditions, field conditions, there's stuff you got to overcome. So in regards to how to approach the game, I was trying to not freak out that the snow was going to heavily alter our style of game.
Right.
Just be calm, learn to overcome it. It meant we had to adjust. So we did address it in terms of, like, we did play the ball forward a whole lot more than what we normally do.
Yeah.
But in the same regard, there were times where I feel like there were a couple passes from like Tim to Alex and the two center backs that, like, yes, you have to do that because it was hard to get footing and take a big swing at the ball. Like, to hit a long ball, you risk slipping and hitting it right to the forward right in front of you because your support foot was going to slip.
Yeah.
So you kind of needed to integrate our system into a longer, more direct system, because you just needed to get further up the field to be able to hit a ball that was effective getting up forward. But in the same regard, like, I'm back there going like, don't slip, you know, make the right decision here. Like, so I felt like, I felt like we struggled. I mean, I'll say that, like, I'm proud of the team because the team didn't use it as an excuse. We went after it. We could have won, but I'd say they were the better team, and obviously, I mean, they won, and they're the better team on the day in the conditions that were given, and that was a tough out for us, and we didn't overcome that game. But could we have been better? Yeah, we should have been better. I felt like at the beginning of the game, I thought we had 3 chances that could have changed the game for us within the first minute. I think Ian had a drop back from Aiden that he missed heavily. That he has more quality to put it, at least challenge the keeper on. Then Ian filtered in Chari in a gap, like right in front of the keeper. No center backs. I mean, the center back was too far out. He recovered. The center back recovered well because Chari tried to take a big swing at it instead of, hey, just toe poke it from there. And then Aiden had a half chance. So I think we had 2.5 good chances.
I think I remember the second one you mentioned where he could have just toe poked it. And I thought, oh my gosh, that goal goes in. It's a different game. It becomes a different game at that point.
And then I felt like there were barrages there without Xander there. It could have been ugly the other way. I think they accumulated like 5 shots within 10 seconds. And a majority of it was our guys watching Xander close down the ball and take it off his gut, take it off his chest, So who knows? But I you come away sometimes going, well, if we had played on a just a clear turf field, what could we have done? We definitely would have won that, because I don't necessarily believe that. Like they offered challenges to us that were same that what F&M does. That like they're different challenges than the normal game that we'll see with a typical formation or something like that, where it's a give and take. That like they have weaknesses that we're going to exploit heavily, and they have a system that exploits us too. So it's like a coin flip of what's going to happen here.
They have that one guy, I forget his name, up top. I think he seemed to be like going out left and then coming back into the play. I thought he was really, really good and really hard to bottle up. And they know it. I've watched them before, and he's their guy, right? And,
well, they were running. I mean, he could watch us and go like, "You don't know what you're talking about," right? But they were running what looked to be the Conti style of, the wingers come in and the outside backs go up, and they hold a third guy to fill the center back. And with that style, they were running their top 3 all over the place. And asking our defenders, okay, like, are you good enough defense to communicate these switches and stuff like that?
Or don't get baited in, right? The wingers coming inside and the outside backs thinking I gotta follow, and just follows and leaves the gaping hole for the outside back to come streaming in, right? Which is what they gun for, but
but in the same regard, it opens, then that's the switch of like, well, if they're going to play that way, it opens up us to counter attack.
To counter to their,
which we'll do. It's not necessarily our bread and butter of what we do, but okay, this is the game. We're now in counterattack mode. Because they are now so spread out. And out of position.
That's it. It's who exploits whom at the right time, right? That's what invariably it comes down. Especially, I mean, I was again first year watching again after so long in such a dense time period and watching all these games. I was really impressed tactically with a lot of teams and sort of how they approached the. I might not have liked how they played, and I mean, they're well known who I like and don't like. But I was always impressed that there was the idea of this is how we play to exploit the other team. And, John Carroll's no different. I think they know how to play. They know very well how to take advantage of where teams are weaker or like you said, just sort of exploit those areas where the other team just isn't covering because that's not their game plan, right? So, so let me ask, what are your early expectations for next year, knowing that you have, 8 months before or 7 months before you get back for preseason and whatnot? Do you have any early expectations as to what you think next year is going to look like?
Well, we lose some key players in Xander and Creed and Chari, Linzer. Recruiting started off looking rough, but now that's
my fault. I'm sorry.
No. It's tough to get guys in here. Student athletes have to be elite, but the class looks good. There's still some concerns, like we lose Xander. We still have James and Drew coming back. I think
Okay, Google, stop. I don't know. It's like bizarre.
So hopefully they step up. We might bring in another keeper. And then that other center back position, we have to kind of shore up. Are they ready to step forward and be bold and not cautious, but also listen to what I'm saying and not just go on instinct? Yeah. If we solve those two things, then I feel like sky's the limit. I really feel like we've improved our attacking positions. There's a whole lot of skill and depth to rotate through. So I'm excited about it, but a little nervous as well. I feel pretty good about next year. And I think, I think if you're going to run a race, you run the race to win it. So, my goal is, and I do feel like what I've seen with a couple teams like Tufts and F&M as well. So I have experience of just following what has happened with those programs, and Tufts got some fortunate breaks to win that first national championship. And then when you win it, then you just expect to win it again. Right. Yeah. And that was the power that Messiah had so many years, is they just expected to win. Yeah. And they've gone through experience of winning so many games in overtime that they just expect, okay, here's another overtime. Let's go win it. And so Tufts now has a mentality of we win national championships, and they carry that around. F&M, I forget what year it was, but they were 10 minutes from not making the conference tournament and scored 2 goals in the 10 minutes. So they barely made the conference tournament. And then they made the NCAA tournament, and then they went on a very good run. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that that's kind of what sparked kind of where they are now, with the belief of we're a top 25 team. Yeah. And we should win games, and they sustained that. And I feel like the next hurdle for this program is to win a national championship, to feel not to be arrogant about it, but just have the confidence. I think we wane in between. It's the psychological part of being okay, we're confident. Oh, I don't know now. Instead of we're the confident, insecure person. At times we're too confident and I have to be a better coach of like understanding that so that we don't stumble. But then there's also times where we're a little too cautious and tiptoeing around things where we need to be more bold and say like, no, like let's win this game. Let's go for it.
Look, there is something to be said about breaking through whatever that ceiling is that you sort of mentally create and a team creates. And if you bust through that, it just brings a whole new level of confidence. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that. And it doesn't have to be winning a national championship, right? It's like, what's the psychological hurdle that you're experiencing and overcoming that in a fashion that, pumps you up. And then at that point, okay, what's now the next? And that's how you get better in my book, right? So
for sure. I lean heavily on that because, part of what we're doing here is I try to help the players become autonomous. So changing formation had to be the easiest way for our team to get the experience of it and then learn it and apply it was we played a team that had this is many years ago, but they had spent a whole week. They didn't have a midweek game. They spent the whole week training to stop us from doing what we do.
Yeah.
And then, so for a half they did.
Yeah.
And then at halftime, I brought the team in and kind of explained why we needed to change formation. We did, and then took over the game. One of our next games after that, very soon, I'm not sure if it was next game or the game after that, but we played Messiah.
Yeah.
And we were playing in a 3-5-2.
Yeah.
And they just weren't letting us get out of their end.
Yeah.
We fortunately didn't make any mistakes that gave them a chance to score a goal.
Right.
But we weren't attacking. So halftime happened and sent the guys to the corner, but the captain stayed, and I intentionally didn't say anything. And then thankfully what I hoped happened did. And my captain said, "Coach, I think we need to change formation." I was like, "You got it, man."
Yeah.
Like, what do you think we should do? And he explained it. And we switched to 4-3-3, and he gave the good reasons of like we need to pin their outside backs back so that like we have room to like get out.
Yeah.
And it totally changed the game. We took over the game. We lost the game because then Messiah changed to go man to man all over the field, and we responded just a little too late.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to go through those experiences, and I think that's why it takes like 2 years to kind of totally get what like, for instance, F&M played something different against us this year, and then Gettysburg used the same thing the next game. And so we needed to go, okay, so now we've seen this, now we know the adjustment for it. Whereas if you could tell, like during the beginning of the F&M game, our guys were struggling to like, okay, what is the solution here?
Yeah.
And so we stumbled with it and didn't quite make a good evaluation of it in the game. But the more we see things like that, the more those guys get confident and then go like, okay, I've seen this, I know how to handle it.
I will say, like F&M always strikes me as probably the hardest one of the hardest teams to play against, is because I liken their soccer to complete chaos at times, and it's just very hard, even when you're trying to get out of the back with the ball. They're all over the place. They go all over the place. They press all over the place, and when they have the ball, you're never quite sure, or at least me watching, and this, they just seem to just wherever the ball goes, that's where the play is, right? And I think that's really hard to come out against. But
so I might have to. My phone just said 20%, so I'm using these headphones. I started off trying to use these Bluetooth ones, and that's where our problem was. That you said, I think you're on mute. So I'm going to plug my phone in and try to see either the Bluetooths work. If not, then I'll just do
if you do
straight
the
from
normal
the phone.
audio at this point, we're good. You know, like if that works for you. Hopefully, this is the last. We'll do the last section now. I just want to talk about recruiting, and then we could.
My volume doesn't work well. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, I can hear you. There we go. Could have made it easy for you from the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you disappeared on me. Oh, there you are. Got it. We're good. Okay, so by the way, this has been fantastic. Like I could do this. I mean, you got 8 hours tomorrow because we'll keep. Let me ask you, just from recruiting perspective, you know, what do you look for? And I think, and I have some. I'll ask you a little bit about just the fact that you're Johns Hopkins, but you know, when you focus on the recruiting aspect, are you looking for positions to fill, or are you looking for players? Right, to me, which are two different.
Yeah, I mean, when you recruit for Hopkins, you have to find first people that can get in.
Yeah.
And then you know, you're hoping for the ideal, but you might have to scale down and say, I don't get the ideal.
Right.
What can I get? So I'm a big Pep Guardiola fan.
Uh-huh.
So I guess I would say, like, I'm perfectly fine with center midfielders all over the field.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's also, I can use a Holland.
Yeah.
Target forward, right?
You won't turn one down?
No. So, you know, there's times where we need certain positions to have certain functions. You know, it would be nice to have wingers that are like Sané or Sterling that can really stretch a team out width-wise with enough pace that scares people.
Yeah.
But we might not get that. So then, okay, what if you're thinking FIFA? You know, the video game and the scale of, like, okay, he brings fitness, he brings technical ability, he brings speed. It's just trying to fill in the holes with the best people I can find that can get in to Hopkins.
Yeah.
So
that leads to my next question about, I mean, you are Johns Hopkins, right? Like, academically, there is a threshold that, you know, I worked in the Ivies right, it discounts a lot of players. I guess that, I mean, is that literally your first hurdle that you ask players? Like, okay, you're interested, what are your grades and all, to see if they meet that threshold?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's like, most people, when I say, like, when I go recruiting and ask for a brochure, hey, do you have a brochure or anything, or do you have anybody with elite academics? They go, oh yeah, sure. And they'll start talking about somebody, and then they say what his test score is. And I'm like, no, that's not enough. And they're usually like, really?
Yeah.
When I say elite, I'm talking like, there's a few schools like Caltech, MIT, that I feel like the three of us are in the same boat, that like I might get more support than Ken does at MIT. But it's the same kind of pocket that they're looking at to say, like, yeah, like, we're talking about, like, top of the top of the top. So if I get an email from an interested player and it has no academics, I rarely look at it.
Yeah.
You know, that's usually the first step of, like, okay, are the academics in line? Okay, then I'll look at the next step. But, you know, that takes some work, because some of these tournaments, you really, there'll be some tournaments like the old academy system, which is now the MLS Next. The first day I usually spend acquiring information. So I just am going around the fields asking for profile books to collect the academic information to know who I can actually look at.
Actually talk to, even whether you're interested or not at that point, right? Like, okay, they met that first threshold. Like I said, working in the Ivies, coaching, it it is a complete, I don't think people understand the different kind of beast it is, right? And which credit to you, I mean, credit to Johns Hopkins, right? Because you do still put out, you do still have really like elite teams. You guys, like I said, the best, I think best in the country. Oh, Johns Hopkins soccer. Like you can't go wrong on either, men's, women's, doesn't matter. So, and knowing how difficult it is to bring in those players is again, credit to you all. And let me ask you something, and this might be different because you are recruiting these very different sort of kids. What would you say? What would you say from a soccer perspective, and maybe even a coachability perspective? Where do you see current high school students that you're bringing into Hopkins? Like where do you see they're lacking, right, or inability or lack of understanding as to what it means to play in a collegiate team? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think the most common answer would be speed of play.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'll add on to that is that the biggest gap that happens between somebody that I think will be good for us, that turns out that they need a lot more time than I thought, is somebody that has been very successful using some particular one function. You'll see it most often as a really fast player that their coaches before just lean into the speed for success and don't lean into coaching the player.
Yeah.
They're just going for results instead of development. And so it's similar to like an academic student who comes in, who the only students that really struggle that they let in here are people who are attending high schools that aren't challenging them enough. And so they're extremely bright. They can probably cram the night before the test, ace it. Yeah, no big problem. And they come here and they think they can operate in the same fashion. Blown away. Like, whoa, I need to put in work. Same thing. An extremely athletic player that can just blow by people, even though his first touch is a little bit struggling, but he can always get it back because he's more athletic than everybody.
That
struggles when they come in here and they go like, your first, we emphasize first touch. So like, see that one that just bounced above your knee? No good.
No good.
There you did it again. No good. And then, so there also is a bit of an adjustment because now I'm pointing out that is not good. And so they go through a process of like insecurity because they were told that they were the greatest. And now they're looking around going like, okay, I'm not the greatest anymore. But as long as they have an open mind to listen, realize, okay, life's not what it was, it's different now, but it has the possibility to be even better. If they have that mindset to kind of settle in and be open and adapt, then they'll be fine.
I will say that to your point, like one of the frustrating things about watching the game is how often, especially the younger age groups, is how often coaches do lean into that strength that makes them better, not because they're better soccer players, but because they can recover from their own mistakes, which I always say, right? They're fast enough, they're strong enough where they don't need to control the ball. They don't need to have a good first touch because you know what? If it gets away from them, they're faster than the guy next to them and they're going to get the ball again, right? And that to me is that to me drives me nuts, right? Because I'm of that opinion. Like, look, we know what a successful soccer player looks like, and we could probably all agree on the top 5-10 things a soccer player needs to do, and just having one of those is just not good enough. So anyhow, that's another tangent for another day. Real quick, and cognizant of time, this was awesome, by the way, but what's the best way for for someone to reach out to a prospect who wants to consider Hopkins, who, for those watching, make sure you have the grades and the test scores, but that are interested in playing soccer at for you?
Well, they need to start by emailing me. It's important what they put in the email. Again, I'm not going to go very far if I don't know academics. And then some sort of video. I don't mind highlight videos. I've heard, I've been to camps and stuff where people say, we've heard coaches say no highlight videos. I like information. And so a highlight video gives me information. It doesn't give me all the information, but it gives me some information. It's like an appetizer. I can look at it and go okay, I want the main course, or I'm ready to move forward, or okay, it's not good enough. I would also say be persistent, because I don't have a full-time assistant coach. So there are way too many emails coming in that I can't spend a ton of time on the emails. I wouldn't be doing anything else. Again, my typing skills are hunt and peck, So I encourage people to be persistent. Just because I don't respond, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not interested. Get in front of me. So either on the tournament trail or camps somewhere. I have recruited players, and over COVID, just about everybody was recruited over video. So it's not unheard of. It's not ideal, but ideally, I'm able to see you live to kind of evaluate you effectively. So I'd say those are the big things.
Okay. So I would just say, is it okay? I usually, in the description, I put a bunch of links to your camps. I won't put your email, because then your 1,000 emails that you get would be double, because you're getting all the spam. But just your camp and all that stuff, is that okay to do
Sure.
For folks whoever? And so I'll do that. And then hey, this was fantastic. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, this was a great way for me to start to talk to you. It was just how it all started. It was really do appreciate it. And I was really pleasantly surprised that somebody read it and actually hey, that was just fantastic. So really do appreciate it. Tell your keeper coach I will be reaching out at some point, or maybe through you. I have a couple other interviews, and then I'm trying to find some others, but really interested in the goalkeeper stuff. So, Coach, thank you very much. Really do appreciate the time, and let's do this again in preseason, and or before preseason, when you have some time to spare, and we could get a sense as to how things are going.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.